tracks defy evolution, more carbon-14 in dinosaur wood, and a mailbag bursting at the seams. This is Genesis Week. Welcome to this episode of Genesis Week, the weekly program of creationary commentary on news, views, and events pertaining to the Origins controversy, made possible by the supporters of CORE Ottawa, Citizens for Origins Research and Education, and of course carried on the Christianima Network, christianima.com, Christian cinema at its finest. Excellence in pirate broadcasting, we continue to bring you the information the anti-creationists don't want you to see or hear, and giving glory to our Creator while doing it. The Bible does not say, be ye transformed by the removal of your mind. Rather, we here at Genesis Week believe your brain was intelligently designed and God wants you to use it. Remember, if you get lost in cyberspace, you can just punch in wazulu.com or genesisweek.com and you can find us. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel to get extras like Crevo rants and full interviews with our guests. I'm your host, Ian Juby. According to the most widely accepted model of evolution, dinosaurs evolved from birds. In fact, many have gone so far as to say that dinosaurs are still around today. They are the birds roosting in the trees in your backyard. The American Museum of Natural History poses a classic example of such claims on their webpage devoted to the alleged dinosaurs to bird link. You can even watch a short video where their experts tell you flat out that birds are dinosaurs, like Mark Norell, curator of paleontology, who said in the video, living birds are dinosaurs, just like human beings are a kind of primate. Birds are a kind of dinosaur. Now, statements like that are nothing more than a fine piece of propaganda. If you pay close attention, you'll notice they actually changed the definitions of birds and dinosaurs to make them one and the same. Just because you're in the same class as a chimpanzee does not make you a chimpanzee any more than being a mammal makes you a whale. This classification system is a man-made system for classifying life into categories for simple study. It has nothing to do with whether or not they evolved from one another or a common ancestor. In fact, that classification system was developed by a creationist, Carl von Linné, known as Linnaeus, who created the classification system and coined the term species because he believed the different life forms were specially created. So obviously, categorizing life into different phylum, classes, etc. has nothing to do with evolution. But the point I want to make here is made clear from the American Museum of Natural History's website, as well as various books, documentaries, and other various propaganda pieces. It is alleged that dinosaurs evolved into birds. Now, according to scripture, birds would have been created on day 5, while the dinosaurs were created on day 6 of the creation week 6,000 years ago. So, in other words, birds were around one day before the dinosaurs, according to the Bible. Now, if, as Norell, Novosek, and many others claim, that birds evolved from the theropod dinosaurs, then we would expect to see a progression through the fossil record of dinosaurs evolving into birds with numerous intermediate fossils. Finding bird fossils older than the theropod dinosaurs would show that birds were around before those dinosaurs, and thus could not have evolved from them. And thus we have another finding this past week from Australia of fossil bird tracks in rocks which contain theropod dinosaur tracks. Now obviously the birds were around in very modern form. In fact, the tracks were described as matching those of the egret, and in fact the tracks showed the skid marks of a bird coming in for a landing. In other words, this bird was participating in the incredibly complex ability of flight. The fossiliferous rocks were dated to some 105 million evolutionary years old, predating the velociraptors, which are supposed to be the textbook example of a half dinosaur, half bird. So we have a problem. You cannot have complex, completely modern birds around before the velociraptor, which was supposedly evolving into birds. You cannot be your grandfather's father. Now, of course, this is only one of perhaps dozens of examples of the topsy-turvy bird evolution. For example, one of the biggest pieces of evidence that is alleged to show that birds evolved from dinosaurs is the alleged feathered dinosaurs. Now, I discussed this matter at great length in Crevo Rant number 46. We have Archaeopteryx, which evidently had completely modern, complex feathers. Yet the feathered dinosaurs, which allegedly evolved after Archaeopteryx, have proto-feathers. In other words, the precursor to the feather. It's completely backwards, if one takes the claims of evidence and age of the dino to bird theorists at face value. They have birds de-evolving. In fact, we find even more modern bird fossils than Archaeopteryx. Proto-Avis was found in the Texas Triassics near Post, Texas, a famous fossil site for a myriad of critters and home to the Mount Blanco Fossil Museum. Now, I've excavated in the Triassics of that area with Joe Taylor, curator of the museum. Now, to the unbiased eye, the Proto-Avis bones sure look like the modern-day blackbird. Yet the rocks it was found in are dated 225 million years old by the evolutionary timescale, which would be 75 million years older than Archaeopteryx and 100 million years older than the Velociraptor. Again, if completely modern birds were around long before any of the supposed half-dinosaur, half-birds, how could birds have evolved from dinosaurs? Instead, the evidence supports completely modern birds being around since the beginning of time and that they did not evolve from the dinosaurs. But these Australian footprints are old news. In 2007, I first examined a trail of strange fossil footprints which had been discovered in the 1960s. Now, when I first read about the trail in 2002, the museum in Nova Scotia had mentioned the trail was probably made by a crocodile-like creature named Baropesia. Now, when I first saw the trail for myself in 2007, my first surprise was seeing that the trail was obviously made by a bipedal or two-legged animal. The museum in Nova Scotia's website now contains a graphic depicting Baropesia being buoyed up by water and thus only walking on its two back legs. Obviously, they agree that it was only two legs making the trail, and I agree that the creature was being buoyed up and influenced by water as it made the trail, but I disagree that it was Baropesia. Baropesia make very distinct tracks which do not even vaguely resemble the Horton Bluff tracks, neither in size nor shape. Baropesia tracks are typically about 2.5 centimeters across, while the Horton Bluff tracks are a very strange U-shaped track about 25 centimeters across. So, what creature made the trail of fossil footprints then? With a little help from my friends in Alberta, I think we found the culprit. And yes, he even looks guilty. Clinton and Diane at the Del Alta Ostrich Ranch, not far out of Calgary, Alberta, aided in the study by letting me hose down their yard and having one of their ostriches walk through the mud. The ostriches have a unique U-shaped foot. And because of the way the ostrich walks, when it walks through deep mud and the foot rotates, the track exaggerates the length of the smaller toe, and it makes a dead ringer match to the Horton Bluff tracks. So who cares? Why does it matter whether or not an ostrich made the Horton Bluff tracks? Well, because those tracks are found in rocks dated by the evolutionary timescale as some 350 million years old. To have completely modern birds in such old rock completely nullifies the wild speculation of dinosaurs evolving into birds, because according to the evolution myth, dinosaurs had not yet evolved by that time. But the thing is, this is also old news. A trail of fossil footprints was found on the same beach in the 1800s by famous geologist William Logan. The tracks are very clearly identical to those of modern wading birds. Now, in his paper to the Geological Society of America in 1933, C.M. Sternberg wrote of the tracks saying, "Superficially, they resemble the tracks of some of the wading birds, but of course there is little probability of their having been made by birds." Notice what just happened. When Sternberg wrote this, evolutionism had taken hold in the scientific community. The obvious interpretation of the evidence was rejected out of hand in favor of evolution, because evolutionism is assumed to be correct. Now, why would this happen? Notice that attempts to identify the track maker of the Horton Bluff footprints has led to bizarre suggestions like Baropesia and even fish flippers. Neither of these even come close to explaining the trackways. Why was the ostrich never considered? Well, the reasons have nothing to do with science. Otherwise, the simplest, most obvious scientific explanation would be embraced. Birds identical to modern birds made fossil footprints at Blue Beach. But the rejection of the obvious conclusions is not because of science, but rather because of human nature. This rejection of the evidence and the complete embrace of the long-refuted evolutionism myth has to do with our origins and the fear and/or hatred of a personal creator God. Why hold on to a bankrupt ideology like evolutionism that has even proven itself wrong with myriads of contradictions? Well, because the only other option is to embrace the reality of a personal, extant creator God. This debate is not about science, because evolutionism is religious in nature, as can be demonstrated by the emotional, often irrational rejection of science and scientific evidence, and the blind belief and faith in processes that run counter to well-established scientific and natural laws. Canadian creationist Vance Nelson is at it again, as he is just putting the finishing touches on his latest book in the Untold Secrets of Planet Earth series. He posted the rather provocative tweet with a photo of fossilized wood from dinosaur deposits and saying, supposedly 65 million years old, but not fossilized and contains carbon-14. The idea of millions of years is faith. He'll be detailing the research in his latest book, Flood Fossils. This was another in many cases we have seen of a fossil tree buried in the same layer as dinosaurs, with 4 different states of preservation in the tree. Part of it was petrified, part was coalified, part was peat, and part was wood. Nelson sent samples to a lab and, lo and behold, there was loads of carbon-14 in the wood. Well, anything older than an absolute maximum age of 100,000 years old should have 0 carbon-14 in it. Instead, these dinosaur-era logs had lots of carbon-14 in them. Again, just like the dinosaur bones themselves. All of this just stacks up to the overwhelming evidence that the Earth is young, not billions of years old, but thousands, and that's why there is still so much carbon-14 found in the fossil record. Stick around, we'll be right back in a minute.
The Complete Creation video series is just that, an exhaustive look at the science, philosophy, and theology behind the creation-evolution debate. In this 12 DVD series, Ian Juby starts off with a 1-hour presentation for the children in God's Little Creation. He then follows up with almost 11 hours of lecturing for the adults as he walks you through the debate, starting at its surprising history and examining the evidence from biology, geology, physics, paleontology, and archaeology. Chances are, any question you have about the creation-evolution debate is answered in this video series. With open captions for the hearing impaired, the series is both entertaining and educational. There are also free resources, such as question and answer sheets and proctor sheets for homeschoolers. Order your set today online at Ian's Bookstore.
Woohoo! Mail for me? Well, I'm not entirely sure why, but there has recently been an influx of emails regarding Crevo rant number 100 on dating methods. Now, in that video, I dismantle the radio dating methods that allege an age of rocks in the millions to billions of years, and I show why such ages simply cannot be believed, complete with benchmark tests of the dating methods on rocks of which we know the actual age. You know, lava flows that have Indian artifacts in them. So we know that the lava flows are about 800 to 1,000 years old, yet multiple radio dating tests on those lavas returned ages of between 10,000 years old and 2.6 billion years old, off by a factor of 10 to 2,600,000. Now, that was only one example. Now, several skeptics watched the video on YouTube, wrote to me on YouTube, with a litany of profanity-laced insults, which I cannot repeat on the air, basically agreeing with what I said, and then saying that somehow that proves that I'm wrong and a liar. They also complained that I had not provided references. Well, actually, if you go to the video on YouTube, right down below the video, you will see About, and you can click on Show More, where you will find references. Amazing. Seeing as how the skeptics apparently cannot figure out YouTube technology, nor reading, I'm not exactly trusting them with more complicated subjects like radio dating. Nevertheless, these skeptics like to throw around words like non-cogenic and somehow assume that that refutes what I said. Well, again, this shows the unreliability of the skeptics, as the term is cogenetic, not cogenic. So these supposed experts are clearly not experts. Nevertheless, the skeptics took issue with my citing the works of Dr. Steve Austin, a geologist who had performed various isochron radio dating tests on the Uinkaret lava flows. Isochron tests are considered highly reliable because they should show if a rock has been contaminated or not. Multiple samples are plotted on a graph. Now, if the rock has not been contaminated, then it is presumed the samples will make a nice, neat line on the graph. If they don't line up, it is considered non-cogenetic, and thus the date is considered not reliable. Now, Austin took multiple samples from different areas and garnered the ire of skeptics who claim that this invalidated his entire research. Really? Well, actually, the reason Austin did that was because the evolutionary expert of dating of the Grand Canyon rocks was E.D. McKee, who had done precisely the same process. So why is it that if an evolutionist does this, it's considered valid and scientific, but if a creationary scientist uses the exact same method, he's called a fraud? The skeptics have shot themselves in the foot again, repeatedly, when it comes to radio dating, with double standards, hypocrisies, and a clear misunderstanding of the science behind radio dating. Just recently in the summer issue of Creation Research Society Quarterly, another paper came out detailing a study using radio dating methods on rocks of known ages. The Novarupta Katmai eruption of Alaska was one of the largest eruptions recorded in recorded history, and the largest since Krakatoa in 1883. It produced a dome of lava. Dr. Shorman took samples of these 100-year-old rocks and conducted argon-argon radio dating method on the rocks to obtain a laboratory given age of 2.36 million to 5.5 million years old on rocks we know are 100 years old. Radio dating methods are bankrupt, unreliable, untrustworthy, and have been refuted time and time again. Jeannie wrote in, "Hey bro, greetings from Ireland where we are helping to lead a DTS. Been thinking about you a lot these days. A rather huge debate has risen here on whether or not there were dinosaurs on the Ark. I figured that if anyone had an educated opinion about this, it would be you. I'm confused. Can you shed a little light?" Well, thanks for writing in, Jeannie, and always good to hear from you. Let's take a look at the scriptures. In Genesis chapter 7, verse 14, we read what kind of animals Noah brought on the ark. "They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. Beasts that have the breath of life would include the dinosaurs. So yes, Noah would have brought dinosaurs. To be more specific, he would have brought baby dinosaurs. Baby dinosaurs don't take a lot of room, don't drink much, don't eat much, sleep a whole bunch, and they don't go to the bathroom much. That's pretty important when you're living in the barn with them. When they get off the ark, they have a full reproductive lifespan ahead of them, which they need if they are going to repopulate the earth. Now, when we read Job chapters 40 and 41, we read about two creatures called Behemoth and Leviathan. Now, be careful. Some translations of the Bible have replaced these words with hippopotamus and crocodile. But read the descriptions yourself. These are not the hippo and the croc. Behemoth is a large creature with large, strong belly muscles, a tail like a cedar tree, and could drink or stop a whole river, depending on how you translate it. Now, whatever this creature is, it's big, and it ain't a hippo, as hippos do not have a tail like a cedar tree. I would suggest it's a dinosaur. And notice that this was written after the flood of Noah. So these would have been creatures taken on board the Ark of Noah. So what then happened to the dinosaurs? Why aren't they around today? Well, that's the wrong question. The question should be, are there still dinosaurs around today? Now, this was the subject of Vance Nelson's first book in his series, detailing the ridiculous amount of historic artwork depicting what sure looks like dinosaurs literally all over the world. In season 1, we had a special interview with Vance after he and Harry Nyborg, curator of the Big Valley Creation Science Museum, had just returned from the Amazon jungle, showing an Indian pictograph of a hunting party surrounding what sure looks like a long-necked dinosaur. That video and Vance's short documentary on that find are both available on YouTube. I also hope to have some guests on the show soon as well who have been on expeditions to remote regions of the world to follow up on reports of what sure appear to be dinosaurs still alive today. David DM wrote in, "You done well. P.S. May you explain the problem of distribution of light in the universe and the speed of light, please." He's referring to Genesis Week number 8, Season 3. Well, thanks for writing in, David. I'm trying to arrange an interview with Dr. Russell Humphreys to deal with that very topic on a future show, but I don't know when I'll be able to pull that off. I hope you'll patiently wait. Lord Song 7 wrote in on YouTube. Ian, I must differ with you on your comment that most of the intelligent design community are evolutionists. One can be an ideist without being a creationist, but one cannot be a creationist and not be an ideist. So you're referring to yourself as well. Quote, evolutionists, end quote, what do you mean? As far as I know, very few ideists are evolutionists. So who are you referring to in the most ideists are evolutionists comment? Darwinism is all that they refute. Come on, Ian, define your terms of reference for this comment, please. Thanks. Well, thanks for writing in. I actually would not call myself, and most young Earth creationists, ideers. The reason is because intelligent design advocates will correctly claim that intelligent design only points to an intelligent designer. They don't say who that intelligent designer is. It could be Zoltar the space alien for all we know. And indeed, some of the ID camp even believe it was aliens who genetically engineered us here. Now, young Earth creationists will use the scientific tool of intelligent design, but we take it a step farther to point out who that intelligent designer must be: the God of the Bible. Start asking those of the intelligent design community if they are young Earth creationists, and many will specifically tell you they are not, and deliberately try and distance themselves from the young Earth creation community and label. Furthermore, many of them specifically argue from evolution. Now, sure, there are some ID advocates who are young Earth creationists. I'm friends with some of the more prolific pro-ID writers, but there's a very distinct difference between the ID and young Earth creationist camps. Jugal also wrote in YouTube taking issue with my differentiation between intelligent design and creationary thinkers. If ID is not creationism in the lab coat, why is it promoted nearly exclusively by the religious and, more to the point, Christian creationists? There is also 0 peer-reviewed papers confirming ID. It is a blatant attempt to sneak creationism into the classroom, and anyone who claims otherwise are liars or gullible. Well, such astonishingly ignorant statements are easy to refute. The Discovery Institute is, of course, the bastion of the intelligent design movement. Now, there's this really cool thing called the Internet. It was built by Al Gore. It's this worldwide network of computers connected to each other all over the world. Now, one of those computers is called Google, and you can use that computer to search all the other computers on the network. Now, there's another computer called Yahoo, but nobody ever uses that anymore. So a quick search on the Google for ID peer-reviewed paper gets you a list from the Discovery Institute of over 70 peer-reviewed intelligent design papers. That's just papers related to ID. That does not include the thousands of papers published by creationary scientists which use intelligent design either directly or indirectly. Now, how Jugal could not be aware of this is beyond me. Secondly, evidently Jugal didn't clue into the obvious. ID would be promoted by primarily religious people because ID wound up converting them into religious people. It was the scientific tool of intelligent design which convinced these people that there was a creator. So the moment they used the scientific tool of intelligent design to say that there must be a creator, you instantly label them religious as if that somehow nullifies their argument. The scientific tool of intelligent design is based on logical, deductive reasoning, and even 5-year-old children can recognize something that is intelligently designed. Well, I gotta call that a wrap. I'm your host, Ian Juby. Thank you for watching. We realize there's a lot of competition out there for your viewership, and we're so pleased you chose to watch Genesis Week. I hope you'll join me again next week. Remember, you can send in your comments, questions, and the deed to your property as well as your mother's maiden name to us in a number of ways. You can email us at comments@genesisweek.com, or you can send us a tweet at GenesisWeek, or you can go to genesisweek.com, which is our YouTube channel. Find the most recent video and post a comment there. Or you can leave a comment on our Facebook page at facebook.com/GenesisWeekTV. Let us remember those words of our Creator, the Lord Jesus Christ, who warned us in saying, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me." We'll see you next week.
We are a viewer-supported program and need your support to keep this program on the air. Please pray for us, and if you wish to financially support the program, Canadians can make a tax-deductible donation to Core Ottawa, Canada North Post Office Box 72075, Ottawa, Ontario, K2K 2P4. While we cannot offer tax-deductible receipts outside of Canada, donors wishing to financially support the program can do so online at ianjuby.org/donations, and thank you for your support.